Hello and welcome to another podcast edition of Taiwan Talk, ICRT's weekly interview segment, bringing you conversations from and about Taiwan. I'm Keith Manconi. Biotech, that industry that includes gene splicing, improvements to agriculture, many forms of medicine. It's being touted as a huge strength for Taiwan's economy. Of course, the biotech industry is already worth more than $20 billion US, and President Tsai Ing-wen has pledged to throw her administration's resources behind making it even stronger. But for those of us who don't have 8 years of schooling in the sciences, when we hear that sort of news, the response, well, at least the response that I get is, oh, that's nice. Just, I have no reference point. It sounds like a big deal, but honestly, I have no idea what it means in, real life terms. So to help me out, and to help out some of the folks out there who I'm sure are as lost as me, today we're going to have on the show a guy who knows exactly what it means, because he's very much in the thick of it all. George Ye is the president of Taiwan Liposome Company, a company that has carved out a very specific niche in the pharmaceutical industry and biotech industry here in Taiwan, and is using that work to partner with companies around the world. I invited him into studio to give his insider take on the industry for us outsiders. George, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Keith.
So your company is actually working on some pretty interesting stuff, and you're moving forward on one drug trial in particular. But before we even get to any of that work, let's just start with the really bonehead question for all of us that didn't show up to all of our biology classes on time. What is biotech? How would we define this?
No, Keith, that's a great question. So basically, I think for biotech is really specific in terms of how the drug can be efficiently improve the therapeutic efficacy or toxicity in your body. But I think in general, what Taiwan is going through right now is what I call is more as a life science type of industry. That include what you have mentioned, including the pharmaceutical industry, including the biotech industry, and also including agriculture and fish farming and things like that. Because all of these are related to science. It's what life science, and pretty much is what we interact on a daily basis. It can be on treatment for disease or prevention or what you eat and everything. So I think what Taiwan is targeting at this time, which is very similar to the U.S. at very beginning, where they start out quite broad in terms of the whole spectrum on what we call the life science, and then start to narrow it down into Pacific or start to divide into subgroup. And I think what the government's trying to doing right now is try to build a critical mass first and try to lump sum the whole group first so we can get to a certain critical mass and then subgroup it in the future.
So just for those of us who are trying to, I guess for me, the big question is, what is the connection between all of these things? I mean, for example, Taiwan is really renowned for its orchids, and there's a lot of research on how to make really good orchids in Taiwan.
Right.
Is there a meaningful connection between that and the sort of pharmaceutical work that you're doing?
I think it is Taiwan. I would say is kind of going through different phases. The first phase, because of the industrialized and then industrial revolution, it kind of brought us into the whole spectrum in terms of doing manufacturing. Okay, and I would say we're probably one of the best in world class. Okay. But if you looking the whole trend right now, it is going through what I would call more as a knowledge-based type of industry, and I would consider biotech or life science industry are more close to these type of knowledge-based type of industry. It is quite unfamiliar for Taiwan, not only from the financial perspective, from the talent perspective, from just in general how the way it is the business is being done. And I think Taiwan, in a way, it is going through that kind of transformation on its crossroad. That's why I think using biotech or using life science as one of the industry to making that transformation, I think it is interesting, and also it is quite important for Taiwan to change from this more capital, more manufacturer, more OEM type of industry, transform into more knowledge-based type of industry. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So maybe it would be fair to say that the connection between agriculture and pharmaceuticals is just the knowledge behind those two things. It's a similar kind of training. You need to study biology. You need to study high tech. I mean, so if you foster that basic knowledge, all of those industries benefit.
Yes, I agree. I think you brought up an example on orchid part. I think again that part is also it's not very how should I say, it's not very expensive to make these, but to make it commercialize it and to perfection this, it take a lot of knowledge. It's not like we're in the manufacturer, you can really calculate this. So there's the risk profile is very different. But once you hit that mark and the value creation become quite different. In the, I would say in the manufacturer business, basically your sponsor will come in and say, okay, you probably, for this amount of work, you get, 20% of the margin or things like that. So the amount of risk you're taking is very low. But for, no matter it's orchid or drug, basically there's a lot of unknown. And so there's a lot of risk that you're taking, either, growing the orchid or making the drug. Of course, the drug is a different standard. But, once you hit that mark, or once you kind of standardize, commercialize this, the value proposition, I think we're talking about, X, probably 3 to 10X these type of margin instead of just, 10, 20% type of margin. So it's a different risk profile and different type of development process. Yeah,
so I guess that another connection would just be your industry as well as these other industries you're talking about just have a really long R&D period. There's a long ramp up.
Right.
All right, well, let's focus on your work in particular. I did some reading before you got here, and I'm going to do my best to explain what it is you guys are working on, and I'll let you correct all the stuff that I get wrong.
Sure.
So let's see how I do. Okay, so I read that you guys have this specific technology that focuses on lipids, like sort of like fat molecule, kind of similar to fats. And the idea is that it encapsulates very small drugs, sort of this nanotechnology that encapsulates small drugs. And you can use that to help deliver those drugs to places that you need it, or to release it over a period of time to kind of slow down the release rate. Did I get that kind of right?
Yes. You are amazing. I mean, you cannot say. I don't think I can say better than you do. This is it's great.
I do my homework. I do my homework.
Yeah, it's good.
All right. So what would you add to that?
So to make it even more simpler, we're like the truck driver.
Okay. I like simple.
Yeah,
simple is good.
And so if you are, traditionally, you go from Taipei to Taichung and then kind of random, So that's what happened to a lot of these drugs. You inject it in and they run everywhere. And probably less than 1% will get to Taichung. Okay. And basically, we're like that truck driver, putting the drug inside of the truck, and then so it can be efficiently delivered to the site and then release it. That's one part. Second part is like what you have mentioned is in terms of because a lot of the treatment right now because it metabolizes quite fast. So basically, you have to inject it quite frequent. And with our system, we're able to sustain release that. Let me give you an example, such as some of the treatment for ophthalmology right now, especially for age-related macular degeneration. So right now, you have to pretty much direct injected into the eyeball once every month.
That doesn't sound like fun.
Yeah, it's not. And then imagine, these patients are usually at their late 50, and right now, if you're looking at the lifespan, you're looking at about 300 to 400 injections, throughout your life. What our delivery system do, we're able to reduce that to basically 3 to 4 months per injection. So pretty much you can reduce from 12 injection a year to 2 injection a year. So that really bring a benefit to the patient, and also even for the physician as well. They don't have to, keep on injecting these to the patient.
And so basically, it's just you're slowing down that release time.
Right. So the if you look at the image of it, it's kind of interesting. It's a little bit like onion. So there's layer of these nanoparticle kind of wrapping up the drug, and so as the drugs, as the layer of these onion or these nanoparticles start to peel off, the drug releasing in different layer. Yeah.
Okay, so kind of that's what facilitates that timed release.
Yes.
Now I know that another area of focus for you guys, and you mentioned that a second ago, is the targeting of the drugs as well.
Yes.
And that would be important, especially for like cancer drugs?
Yes. So for a lot of these cancer patients, because you inject such as chemo drug that a lot of patients use quite common, you inject it, and probably when it goes through the bloodstream, probably less than 1% will get to the target site. So that's why you see a lot of patients have pretty strong side effect, including, throw off and then hair start to fall off, things like that.
Well, because the drugs are toxic intentionally. They're supposed to be toxic.
Right, exactly. But what you need to do is really to pack the right amount of drug to get to the target site.
Right.
Because rest of it is just damage a lot of these normal cells. So that's what TLC does, is we're able to pack these drug in these nanoparticle, which is about 80 to 100 nanometer. So it can be efficiently delivered to the tumor site and then release it. And a lot of people was like, wow, how do they deliver to that
how does it know where to go?
Right. Okay. No. So basically, one of the mechanism for these type of tumor cell or become the tumor is grow up quite rapidly, and the blood vessel at the tumor site are very leaky. They're not as dense as the normal blood vessel, and these leaky usually have about 400 to 500 nanometer type of leak room. And then that allowed our drug, which is 80 to 100 nanometer, able to penetrate and stay there and then release it. Yeah.
So it's like a lot of other physical sciences or engineering, where you're just kind of exploiting this one rule, this one exception, and using that to get the thing done that you need to get done.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so that gives our listeners just a little bit of a sense of what it is that you're working on right now. And actually, okay, I guess we should hit on this real quick. You're moving forward with one particular drug, just to give our listeners an example, TLC 599. And the idea here is that it, in this case, I guess we should say you work with a lot of different drugs.
Yes.
And you have to develop... for each individual drug, you need to make sure that your system works with it.
Right.
In this case, you're working with a steroid to treat osteoarthritis.
Yes, that's correct. So just a little bit background information on the OA patient. So a lot of OA patients kind of go through three different stages. The first stage is when they start to feel a little bit pain, and the doctor will ask you to lose weight, or maybe give you some pain medicine to help you release the pain. That's the first stage. And when you get to the second stage, basically, the oral type of painkiller is not enough. So they start to get treated either using steroid or you use hyaluronic acid. Now, for hyaluronic acid, it's mostly for lubrication to help your joint to move a little bit. It's like lubrication, help it smooth it out.
Because, of course, arthritis is all about your joints are kind of breaking down a little
Right.
bit. The cartilage isn't working the way it's supposed to.
Right, that's correct. And then, of course, on the third stage is really failing, and then basically you need to have the knee replacement. Okay, so what we're targeting is really on the second stage. Now, one of the challenge for these second stage type of patient is for a lot of steroid, it can only last about 2 weeks type of duration, and since a lot of these steroid, in order to let it last about 2 weeks, it's more as a crystallized type of formulation. And these crystallized type of formulation really rubbing against the knee, that's where create a lot of these control toxicity. And so the doctor actually do not recommend more than 4 injections per year. Now, if you take a year and divide it by 4, which is roughly about 3 months. So basically you have an empty period between 2 weeks all the way to 3 months duration, about 12 weeks. So that's where we felt there's an unmet need in terms of develop a better type of delivery system where the steroid, the pain management can not only control in the 2 weeks, but also all the way last to 3 months type of duration. So that's where we believe this TLC 599 is targeting. It's targeting for patients that can manage the pain for 3 months duration. And so basically we have taken the drug from the animal study, going to clinic, started phase 1, 2, and right now it's entering phase 2 study. Basically will be targeting for OA patient over 3 months pain management duration.
Okay, so like trials with actual people involved in them.
Yes.
All right, so all of this, I think, just will probably help illustrate that the problems that you're working on, as you said, very long research time, very complicated problems that have a lot of different moving parts.
Right.
And there are, there's just so many variables to think about here and so many creative ideas that go into it that need to be tested, each one individually. And so obviously this is a very challenging industry, which kind of leads me to the next topic that I want to get into.
Yeah.
Why do this in Taiwan? Your company, I happen to know, has connections to the U.S.
Yes.
I believe it's a subsidiary that's doing work in the U.S.
Yeah.
So why is Taiwan a good place to do what you're doing?
Okay. There's two ends to it. So our founder, Dr. Ki Long Hong, he was born in Taiwan and educated and worked many years, probably more than now, probably 4 decades in the U.S. And for him, is always he always want to give something back to Taiwan. And so Liposome was one of his passion. That's why the company is called Taiwan Liposome Company. It was something that he wanted to give it back to Taiwan. So that's why he started the company in Taiwan. And I think as it started to evolve, we do see advantage of working in Taiwan as we start to see the industry starting to shifting. Started in U.S. and then now it's putting more focus in Asia. And then I think Taiwan being in a very unique position that it can really leverage a lot of resource in both in U.S. and looking at the market not only in the U.S. but also looking into the potential of entering to China as one of the opportunity. So that's, I think, Taiwan, right now is going through that phase, and I do see a great potential in terms of really leveraging on both market, which is probably the key number one and number two market in the world. And how do you play on that will become quite important going forward. Yeah.
This may be getting in just a little bit too far into the weeds for our listeners, but we'll see if this doesn't get too complicated. I understand that one of the advantages that Taiwan has working with the Chinese market is that there's actually hospitals in both countries that are certified to give data for kind of regulatory purposes. So there's I think there's 4 hospitals in Taiwan. And 4 in China where they kind of work together and they have a lot of the same standards, so it's easier to get a drug past the regulations in China if you develop it in Taiwan. Is that sort of roughly correct?
Yeah, it is, Keith. I think that's a great point. So basically, I think throughout the last decade, I think China is probably the only market that still have a double-digit growth, especially in the healthcare area, and most of the market is kind of going flat or going at a 2% to 3% and things like, including Taiwan. And everybody want to go into China, but it is the regulatory hurdle in China that kind of prevent a lot of foreign company that going to entering directly into China. So a typical a foreign company, if they want to do, let's say if they have a phase 2 type of clinical asset, a product that they want to enter into China, they probably will need to start over. Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, one of the thing is, I think one of the things that I want to point out is because from the Chinese regulatory, they're more looking into safety of the Chinese population or Chinese ethnicity and things like that. Because it's not how good your drug work. It's if this doesn't do well, I'm literally in trouble, right? So they tend to be much more conservative. And looking from the previous clinical data, a lot of it probably do it in US or in US where most of the dose strengths is really, or the toxicity or the efficacy are really related to Caucasian. So they believe there might be a different toxicity profile or efficacy profile compared to Chinese. And I think that's where I think Taiwan play an interesting role. So we had a compound.
Is there any evidence behind that?
Yes.
Oh, there is.
There is evidence. So so that's why a lot of time if you have an approved drug, they if you want to enter into Japan, as well, and sometimes again, it really depending on drug to drug. Certain drug, there are certain dose strengths relation, and certain drug there's might be different toxicity. So there's a different variation. Yeah, but from the safety perspective, of course, they want to make sure there's no difference, or they can adjust the difference. Okay, so a lot of time they will need to repeat a lot of these study over. That's where we have a compound that started preclinical in the U.S., filed the U.S. FDA IND, did our phase 1 in both U.S. and Taiwan, and with that clinical data, we were able to jump directly into China for phase 2, which is I would say extremely abnormal to do that. Previously, they will probably require much more intense type of study before you can go into clinical in China. Now, I think from the agency perspective, I think what they were looking for is because out of the 60 patients that we have, 20 patients actually was coming from Taiwan, and there's enough safety and efficacy profile that have been established in Chinese ethnicity, and so that gives
reassuring.
Give them the assurance and comfort in terms of just directly jump into phase 2. So I think using this as an example, I do see Taiwan can play advantage of that for more as a hub that if you want to entering into China. Yeah.
Let's shift focus a little bit to the knowledge base and the talent base that you find here in Taiwan. Now, it's kind of interesting because you hear a lot of people that look at the education system here complain a lot about how there's not enough focus on creativity. You know, Taiwanese kids they're just memorizing; they have no creativity. Yeah. When I hear some of these ideas that are coming out of the engineering industry, that are coming out of the biotech industry, there was a lot of creativity that went into that. Yes. So is there something else going on? I mean, would you say that there is a fair amount of there is a fair amount of creativity that's being taught to Taiwan's scientists and engineers?
Yeah, no, I think it is getting much better, you know, and but I think one of the challenge, it is really about market opportunity. I think Taiwan is very good in terms of science, technology-wise, in terms of some of these innovation. But, you know, if you really think about what is innovation, it actually also related to in terms of how much of these can be commercialized. So sometimes we can be very tacky, but you know, being tacky may not penetrate enough for the market. And that's where I believe we are lacking talent of. It is really understanding the market need and bringing the technology, merging with the market need. That's where I believe we need to strengthen that.
I see.
There's a lot of good engineers. There's great scientists. But a lot of time, not all of the technology, not all of the science will become a product.
But I mean, I would you still agree that you know, in choosing which, let's just say which country in Asia, if you were going to start a biotech company in Asia, would Taiwan have? It would be one of the better places, just in terms of the quality of employees that you could find. Is that right?
Yes, and also the retain rate, because I think for our industry, it is the development time is really long. So you want to make sure your talent are well retained, and so the knowledge base can be transferred from one to another without any disruption. Yeah.
All right, let's switch focus again and now get a little bit political. It's time to get political. We're going off on dangerous ground. Like I mentioned earlier, of course, Tsai Ing-wen said that this was an industry that biotech that she really wanted to focus on supporting. It's a key development area for her administration.
Yes.
How much is that going to matter for the biotech industry?
I think, Keith, that's a great question. So I do believe our administration right now try to use biotech as one of the example to set the tone for knowledge-based type of industry. Okay, this is probably, I would say, the most complex industry. It goes through from technology, it goes through IP, it goes through development time, it goes through different type of talent, and then eventually, market opportunity and things like that. If you look at the 5 industry she have been focusing on, a lot of these are also related to more what I consider as more knowledge-based type of industry. And so setting a tone in biotech, I believe will help other industry as well, because same situation is going to happen to the market entry, same situation going to happen to the IP. How do you wrap it around IP? How do you retain talent? How do you grow from that, from being a very small market and then really penetrate into a global market? How do you build an international partnership? So I think that's why I think it's not just focusing on biotech, but using biotech as an industry to set up the framework so it can be implemented across industry.
What are the sort of moves that the government could make that you think will matter the most?
I think deregulation. Deregulation. A lot of just looking from the financial perspective, from the talent restrictions and from the globalization. I think we talk about globalization, but a lot of our infrastructure is not there yet. Our financial market is quite active, but a lot of them are still really adapt into this manufacture idea where you put in $10, I put in $10. We're 50-50. But I put in 10. You didn't put anything. Sorry, buddy. You only work for me. But what about this? When you're in a knowledge base, it's really about how much is inside of your brain, how much creativity is worth, and that's not being calculated in this formulation, and that's not. I don't think is correct, because if you look at going forward, if we use U.S. as an example, going forward, look at the Google, Facebook, and then these are about talent. There's not any brick and mold brick there, or very minimum, And so how...
You think that there should be more rewards for good ideas?
Yes, I think so. I think so.
And is that a matter of intellectual property, or?
It's not only in intellectual property, but also how do you evaluate human capital? And right now, we're still in a very... In the mindset in terms of manufacturing, because if you really think about what is manufacturing, it's really you had a good machine, and then you have someone that are listening and then controlling the machine and then produce an amount. As the more it produce, the costs go down. That's it. Right? So there's not that much, calculation of human talent in this equation.
It sounds like you're making a similar complaint to what I hear from a lot of people is that too many Taiwanese companies just focus on reducing the cost and not enough on improving the product.
Yes, it is.
But what's the government's role in that?
I think from couple of perspective is really in terms of just, incentive. Traditionally, if when I go back to the financial market, there's usually a part value. So part value is where you put $10, I put $10, we're 50-50. Now they change the part value. You can do it less than $1 or something like that. So which means I can structure a financial incentive for you, Keith. Let's say own 20% of the company with probably less than a cent, right? And then where I'm the investor coming in, I have to pay $10. But if it's go well, everybody's making a lot of money. So that traditionally that was not in place.
I see.
And so that allow a lot of very interesting, financial structure, which are not regulated. I think you need to. I think what really moved the market, it is really financial and talent and basically technology. And then, of course, in drug, including regulation. If you have these four ingredients, basically you can move the market.
Let's keep things a little bit political. If we're talking about the Tsai administration and if we're talking about China, you said that that's one of the key markets. Would the current state of cross-strait affairs where, we see a lot of evidence that China is using its market power over things like the tourism industry to kind of pressure Taiwan, would you see that as a potential threat to the future of your industry and making use of that market?
Keith, this is a tough question.
I told you we were going to get dangerous.
Yes and no. I think... if I look at, I just came back from China, and I see it as helping each other out. I think China definitely. I mean, if you look at what China today, looking at I'm just using IT industry as an example. What it become China today is actually getting a lot of help from Taiwan at a very early stage. There's a lot of Taiwanese IT industry building the infrastructure around that and then really help to build China IT industry today. Now, if we're looking at similar for biotech industry and healthcare industry, similar thing. One interesting thing that I can tell you is if you look at the top 10 marketing drug, which is branded drug, it's very different if you compare to Taiwan, U.S., Japan versus China. Okay, and which means if you look at the top 10 drug is selling in China right now, it's still very basic type of drug. Okay, but if you look at Taiwan and Japan and U.S., these are the most innovative drug. So, I mean, giving that kind of figure, you think, I think China definitely need, I wouldn't say a lot of help, but, definitely need some help to make that kind of transformation. And I do see Taiwan can play a role in that perspective, very similar to its IT. And so I think, of course, now it's a little bit slow because I think the China government still try to get a sense of the current administration, what their
intentions are.
Intentions, or at least just testing the water a little bit. And
but the need is so great, they're not going to let politics get in the way.
Yeah, I don't think so, because I do see there's a benefit for both sides. Especially if you really think about China going forward, starting from 2017, basically the aging population will start to peak, will start to taking off. Okay, so healthcare will become a key issue, and I think the government realized that. So that's why I think just last year you see a lot of regulatory reform in terms of for the healthcare and also for the pharmaceutical industry, and what is a good drug and how to approve a drug. A lot of these regulations are being implemented as we speak. Yeah.
All right. I've got one more dangerous political question, and then
go ahead.
It's all softballs after that. So, of course, earlier this year, I mean, before Tsai Ing-wen even took office, before she had a chance to, make this push in biotech that she was pledging to make, we all learned the name of OBI Pharma that became a household name when one of its drug trials was very disappointing, didn't do as well as expected. And then later it came out that it's Wang Qihui, the head of Academia Sinica at the time. He was implicated in insider trading scandal and got bumped out of his post for that. So this has raised a lot of questions about the transparency of the industry. Especially as, we see the brother of Tsai Ing-wen. He was a stakeholder in OBI Pharma as well. Tsai Ing-wen herself has obvious connections to the industry. She used to, work directly in the industry. So for people on the outside looking in, I mean, what should we take away from all of this?
Yeah, this is great question, and probably one of the toughest questions. No, I think we have to look at, I would say there's a couple of angles looking at this. One is really in terms of how research work is being transformed into development and transformed into commercialization. This actually, Keith, interestingly, it happened in the U.S. as well. So, this is about many years ago, where a lot of Genentech's original technology was from UCSF. So there was certain litigation between in terms of how the academia going to commercial partner. And that's why, if you now go to UCSF, there's actually a building called Genentech. They helped fund the whole building. And it was because some of it is actually related to these type of litigation. I think Taiwan actually going through that kind of transformation is, as I mentioned earlier, is still at a orphan stage, very early stage of the industry, where we still do not know what is a real, what's the understanding of technology transfer and how much is worth. Okay. And that's why I think it needs to be deregulated in the sense there where is you can start making these much more transparent. Because of certain regulation, it prohibits from the R to go into the D. And then if you look at today, even in U.S., most of the R is being done in the research center. Okay, because there is no way for any commercial unit like TLC to do that kind of R. So what we do, only D part. We even have technology that licensed from institutions from the U.S. Okay, and then those are quite normal. But if you look at maybe 20 years ago, I don't think those are normal in the U.S. Okay, so that's one angle.
I guess the big concern for a lot of people is in Taipei especially. That's where I'm most familiar. It seems like, in the construction, in the development sector, Ko Wen-je, the mayor of Taipei, he's spending all of his political capital trying to unwind just decades and decades and decades of, that connection between the industry and the government. Yes. And, you don't get anything done unless you know the right person in government. Right. And the government is always, kind of occasionally colluding with people in industry. And there's just that very tight and, at times corrupt relationship. And so when people see something like this going on with Tsai Ing-wen, off to the side, pretty far away, but with some connection to it, I think that people get nervous that maybe this industry that we're hoping will get very big and very prosperous may end up having similar issues. Do you see that as a real concern?
Honestly, I think I don't, because I think if you're looking at, for me, my training is all about trend. Okay, and I'm looking at the industry and how it's being developed in Taiwan. I see this is definitely a strong trend going upward, and then of course I mean any type of these concern. It might be small bump in the way, but in general, I don't think it will affect the industry. I mean, if you look at 10 years from now, I think they will be like, oh yeah, something like that happened, but I don't think it will affect the industry because I think the industry is going to be here and it's going to be here for a long time, and I can definitely see how Taiwan can play advantage in terms of not only on the financial capital market, regulation, talent, and access to market to both U.S. and Taiwan. I do see a strong trend going forward, and this is going to run into bump here and there, but I think in general is in the right direction.
I promised a softball question, so here it is. I noticed that you have the Apple iWatch. As a biotech professional, I feel like I have to ask you: are you enjoying that? Is that working well for you?
I got this just last week at Hong Kong, the Series 2. Because I swim quite a bit, and then this is waterproof.
Oh, that's what you need. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay, so there you have it: a biotech professional enjoying his iWatch. All right, that's a strong endorsement.
Yes.
Well, I want to pick up on the point that you were just making a second ago, just to kind of round things out and give our listeners a sense of where this is all going. What would you say is the broader benefits to Taiwan's economy as this industry grows? I mean, obviously, we all want drugs that are more effective and more powerful, and obviously, it's going to be good to have more people with high-paying jobs. But is there a broader benefit to the economy?
Yeah, I do think that because I think if you look at doing healthcare in general or doing drug development in particular, in the world, probably less than 10 countries. And then if you really think about even country like Russia or China have not developed new drug, and look at their economy. Of scale and things like that. And if you look at the top 5, you're looking at U.S., of course, but Switzerland, UK and things like that. These are, so it sets certain standard in terms of your care not only in Taiwan, but I think your care for the human being in general, because it is probably one of the toughest industry. But if you can really bring out a drug, really benefit the human being, I think that will kind of elevate the whole Taiwan society to a different level of thinking, different level of looking at the world, different perspective and things like that, and how the world will look at Taiwan differently, if we do have a drug that built by our own and, develop it and then benefit the human being. I think, so it is not just the number, but I think it is the whole society, the whole human being. I think you definitely want to have that kind of contribution as a country.
All right. Well, something to look forward to right there. We have been speaking today to George Ye. He is the president of Taiwan Liposome Company. George, thanks so much for coming in today.
No, thank you, Keith.
Thanks for listening to another podcast edition of Taiwan Talk. Taiwan Talk broadcasts every Monday at 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. on ICRT FM 100. You can find that right after the top of the hour newscast. You can also find an extended podcast version of these interviews, such as the one you just heard, online at the ICRT website, on iTunes, and pretty much anywhere where you might expect to find podcasts. I want to remind our listeners about another show that we put out. Taiwan This Week is now, we've been doing that for a little bit over a year now. That show is a weekly roundup of the top news stories from around Taiwan. So, if you're not necessarily following the top headlines every single day, we do some of the hard work for you and just sum it all up on Friday. Take some of the pressure off. Or, if you are somebody who really does follow every single day, we still have some pretty heavy-hitting commentators coming in, helping us out. And their insights really, I think, add a lot to what you're going to find in the typical newspaper articles. So look for that every Friday on ICRT at 8:15 p.m. in the evening. You can find the broadcast there. Or, once again, we have an extended podcast version of that show as well. You can look for that in all the same places you can find Taiwan Talk. So once again, that's Taiwan This Week, every Friday on ICRT FM 100. That is it for the show today. For ICRT and Taiwan Talk, I'm Keith Manconi. See you next time.